Nominhan, remove this trash. No ID, no entry.
Get your ghetto self out of here. This is for real people. Security guard Daniel Carter's harsh words cut through the cool morning air as he confronts a black woman in an expensive business suit standing outside the courthouse. Before she can speak, he grabs her arm roughly. "Officer, I work here," Rebecca Thompson says, her voice steady and calm. "Like hell you do," Carter snaps back. He whistles sharply to his partner. "Mitchell, help me get rid of this trash." Both guards grab her arms and drag her backward across the hard concrete. Her expensive leather briefcase scrapes loudly against the ground while her heels struggle to find grip. Workers from the courthouse freeze in doorways, already pulling out phones to record as they watch a well-dressed woman being hauled away like a common criminal. Rebecca doesn't resist. She doesn't yell or scream. She simply holds her head high as two grown men treat her like she's worthless, right in front of the very building where justice is supposed to happen. Where are you from? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. The courtroom feels thick with tension as Daniel Carter adjusts his uniform and takes the witness stand. His lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Roberts, walks up with the confidence of someone who's defended plenty of officers before. "Officer Carter, tell the court about your background and training," Roberts begins. Carter sits up straighter, his chest puffed out with pride. 16 years with courthouse security, sir. I've worked the overnight shift, 7 in the evening to 7 in the morning, for the past 11 years. I know every corner of this building, every rule, every possible danger." "Were you working your regular shift that morning?" Roberts asks. "No, sir. Officer Rodriguez called in sick with food poisoning. They asked me to cover the morning shift as an emergency. I've only worked mornings maybe 6 times in my whole career." Carter's voice sounds like he's doing everyone a huge favor. Roberts nods with understanding. "So you weren't used to the daytime staff and routines?" "Exactly right. The night shift is completely different. We deal with cleaning crews, maintenance workers, and emergency repairs. During the day, you've got all these lawyers, office workers, judges coming and going. I don't know their faces because I'm usually heading home when they're showing up." Carter shifts in his seat, getting comfortable with his story. "Now, I've maybe seen 3 black judges in my 16 years here, all older men. Judge Williams, Judge Thompson, and Judge Martinez. But this woman," he shakes his head dismissively. "She didn't look like any judge I'd ever seen." "What did you see that morning?" Roberts asks. "Around 7 in the morning, I spot this woman walking toward the restricted entrance. That's the judge's only access point. She's dressed nicely, I'll admit that, but something felt wrong." Carter's eyes narrow as he remembers. "In my experience, people who really belong somewhere don't act nervous. They don't look around like they're lost. They don't act evasive. And this woman was definitely acting evasive." "How so?" "Oh, absolutely. When I approached her and explained she couldn't use that entrance, she got defensive right away. Started making demands, claiming she belonged there. That's exactly what troublemakers say when they're trying to talk their way into places they shouldn't be." Roberts moves closer to the jury. "What happened next?" Carter leans forward, his voice becoming more serious. "She became more and more agitated and resistant. Kept insisting she had business in the restricted area, but she couldn't show proper identification or authorization. In my 16 years of experience, that's a huge red flag." "Did you try to verify who she was?" "Of course I did. I asked for a courthouse ID, judicial credentials, anything to prove she belonged there. She couldn't provide any of it." Carter spreads his hands as if the answer is obvious. "Look, I don't judge people based on how they look. I follow the rules. No ID, no entry, that's it." "What about the physical removal?" Roberts asks. Carter's face grows stern. "The woman refused multiple lawful orders to leave the restricted area. She was becoming disruptive, raising her voice, drawing attention from other early arrivals. I called for backup because the situation was getting worse." And Officer Mitchell responded. "That's right. Mitchell has been my partner for 4 years. He can confirm everything I'm saying. When someone refuses lawful orders and becomes difficult, we have to escort them from the premises. It's standard security procedure for keeping order and safety. Roberts pauses for effect. Officer Carter, did you use too much force? Absolutely not. We used the bare minimum force needed to remove someone who wouldn't cooperate from a restricted area. She was escorted, not attacked, to the public area where she should have been. Carter's voice carries righteous anger. We followed every single rule in the book. Why didn't you just call the courthouse administration to check her identity? Carter looks genuinely confused by the question. Sir, at 7 in the morning, administration isn't open yet. The building is running on minimal security staff. If everyone who claimed they belonged somewhere could just demand we call around and check their stories, we'd never maintain proper security. In your professional opinion, did you handle this correctly? Without question, I protected courthouse security, followed proper procedures, and treated the individual with the same professional standards I use for everyone. Carter's voice grows stronger. I've dealt with hundreds of similar situations over 16 years. This was textbook procedure. But then, defense attorney Michelle Chen stands up for cross-examination, and Carter's confident look wavers slightly. Officer Carter, you said you've worked nights for 11 years. When was the last time you learned about daytime judicial staff? Carter hesitates. Well, that's not really part of my job. So you wouldn't know if new judges had been hired recently. The night shift doesn't get briefed on administrative changes unless it affects our specific duties. Chen pulls out a document. Are you aware that Judge Rebecca Thompson was officially appointed to this courthouse 4 weeks ago? Carter's face tightens. I wasn't told about that, no. Wouldn't checking staff rosters be part of basic security procedures? We have our assigned areas and duties. I focus on my job. Your job is to recognize authorized staff, correct? The confidence is draining from Carter's voice. Within my normal work scope, yes. And yet you made no effort to check whether Ms. Thompson might be authorized staff before physically removing her. Carter's jaw clenches. She didn't show proper identification. Did you ask what type of identification she had? A long pause. She should have known to show courthouse credentials. That's not what I asked. Officer Carter, did you specifically ask what identification she had? Another pause, even longer. I followed standard procedure. Chen sets down her papers. Officer Carter, in 16 years of experience, how many times have you physically removed someone from courthouse property? Carter shifts uncomfortably. I don't keep exact numbers. Approximately. Maybe 16, 21 times. And how many of those people were black women in professional clothing? Roberts objects, but the damage shows on Carter's face. The confident officer who started his testimony now looks like a man seeing holes in his story he hadn't noticed before. Chen continues without mercy. You testified that you don't judge people based on appearance, but isn't it true that you immediately assumed Ms. Thompson didn't belong based only on seeing her approach the entrance? I observed suspicious behavior. What behavior? Walking toward a door. Carter's voice rises defensively. She looked out of place. Out of place how? The courtroom falls silent as Carter realizes he's just contradicted his own testimony about not making appearance-based judgments. His face reddens as he struggles to find an answer that doesn't sound exactly like what it is. Racial profiling with a badge. I used my professional judgment based on 16 years of experience. But the damage is done. The confident officer has become a man whose story is falling apart thread by thread, and everyone in the courtroom can see it happening right before their eyes. Rebecca Thompson rises from her seat with a grace that demands attention. She walks to the witness stand, not like someone asking for justice, but like someone who belongs in this courtroom in ways the audience doesn't yet understand. When she speaks, her voice carries the measured rhythm of someone deeply familiar with legal proceedings. Please state your name for the record, Attorney Chen begins. Rebecca Catherine Thompson. Her voice is clear, professional, unshaken by the morning's events. Ms. Thompson, can you tell the court about your morning routine that day? Rebecca adjusts her posture slightly, her hands folded calmly in her lap. I arrived at the courthouse at approximately 7 in the morning, as is my usual practice. I prefer to arrive early to review my morning preparation and make sure everything is properly organized for the day ahead. Your morning preparation. Yes, I have specific procedures I follow before beginning my daily responsibilities. It requires quiet time to review case materials, check scheduling, and mentally prepare for the tasks ahead. The way she speaks about procedures and scheduling suggests someone with real authority over their own schedule. Why did you choose to use the main entrance that morning instead of other entrances? Rebecca's expression shows a flicker of frustration quickly controlled. The electronic access system wasn't working. My usual entry point wasn't available, so I had to use the main entrance. It was inconvenient, but I assumed it would be a minor delay. Your usual entry point? Yes, I typically use a more private access route that lets me reach my work area without going through the public areas of the building. She pauses meaningfully. Privacy and efficiency are important when you have significant responsibilities. Chen moves closer. Describe your interaction with Officer Carter. Rebecca's composure never wavers, but her voice carries quiet steel. Officer Carter approached me with immediate hostility. Before I could explain my presence, he made degrading assumptions about why I was there. His language was not just unprofessional, it was deliberately dehumanizing. Can you be more specific? He called me ghetto trash and told me to find the welfare office. When I tried to explain that I belonged there, he became increasingly aggressive and dismissive. Rebecca's tone stays controlled, but the hurt is audible beneath the professionalism. Officer Carter never asked for my identification. He never asked about my purpose. He simply decided based on looking at me that I had no legitimate reason to be there. What happened when you tried to explain? I stayed calm and tried to de-escalate the situation. I told him I had business there and belonged in the building. His response was to call for backup and treat me as a threat. Rebecca's eyes flash with controlled anger. I was dragged across concrete like a criminal while my colleagues watched from windows and doorways. The courtroom stirs at the word colleagues, though its meaning isn't immediately clear to most observers. Did you resist the officers? Absolutely not. Despite the humiliation and physical pain, I maintained my dignity. Resisting would have only made an already wrong situation worse. Her voice carries the authority of someone used to making decisions under pressure. Sometimes the most powerful response to injustice is to stay composed and let the truth speak for itself. Chen walks toward the jury. Ms. Thompson, you mentioned you had business at the courthouse that morning. Can you explain? Rebecca pauses, choosing her words carefully. I had professional obligations that required my presence at precisely 9:30 that morning. These obligations involve significant responsibilities that affect multiple people's lives and require extensive preparation. And these obligations were scheduled in advance. Yes, for several weeks. My morning schedule is typically planned far in advance due to the nature of my work. Missing or being late for these obligations would have serious consequences for many people. What type of work requires such precise scheduling? Another meaningful pause. Work that involves making decisions that affect people's futures. Work that requires absolute punctuality and thorough preparation. Work that demands both legal expertise and moral authority. The way she describes her work suggests something far more significant than a typical courthouse employee, though she's careful not to reveal too much. Ms. Thompson, you seem very familiar with courthouse procedures and rules. Can you explain why? I've spent considerable time in courtrooms throughout my career. I understand how these institutions work, what's expected of staff, and how security should properly balance safety with respect for individuals' rights. Her knowledge goes deeper than that of a typical visitor or even attorney. And in your experience, was Officer Carter's behavior appropriate? Rebecca's voice becomes firmer. Officer Carter violated every principle of professional security. He made assumptions based on prejudice, failed to follow basic verification procedures, and escalated a situation that required only simple communication. She pauses, her legal expertise showing. More importantly, he failed to recognize that true security comes from treating all people with dignity while properly verifying credentials. Did his actions affect your ability to fulfill your professional obligations? Significantly, the incident delayed my arrival to my work area and caused unnecessary stress before I needed to perform duties requiring complete focus and clear judgment. The weight in her voice suggests these duties are more important than anyone realizes. Roberts, Carter's attorney, begins his cross-examination with skepticism. Ms. Thompson, isn't it true that you could have avoided this entire situation by simply showing identification? Rebecca's response is measured but pointed. I should not have been required to prove my right to exist in a public building. Officer Carter never asked for identification. He made assumptions and acted on prejudice. But surely you understand security concerns. I understand security very well. I also understand the difference between legitimate security measures and discriminatory harassment. Her voice carries the authority of someone who's made such distinctions professionally. You claim to have professional obligations at 9:30. What exactly is your profession? Rebecca meets his gaze steadily. I work in the justice system, ensuring that legal proceedings are conducted fairly and according to law. That's rather vague. Are you an attorney? A slight smile crosses Rebecca's face. My role in the justice system requires extensive legal knowledge. Yes, but you're not answering the question directly. I'm answering as precisely as the question allows. There's something almost regal in her composure, as if she's used to controlling conversations rather than being controlled by them. Roberts presses harder. Why won't you simply state your job title? Rebecca's pause is pregnant with meaning. Because my job title would fundamentally change how this courtroom views everything that happened this morning, and I believe Officer Carter's actions should be judged on their own merits, not on the basis of who I turned out to be. The courtroom buzzes with speculation. Who is this woman whose identity could change everything? What position does she hold that would transform the entire story? But Rebecca Thompson isn't ready to reveal that yet. She sits with the quiet confidence of someone holding the ultimate trump card, waiting for exactly the right moment to play it. 4 weeks earlier, Chief Judge Elizabeth Anderson raised her right hand before a packed courthouse ceremony hall. Please welcome our newest judicial appointment, the Honorable Rebecca Catherine Thompson. Rebecca stood in judicial robes for the first time, taking the oath that transformed her from prosecutor to judge. Local media captured the moment. Courthouse staff applauded, and her swearing-in became part of official courthouse records. Yet Daniel Carter, working his usual night shift, never saw any of it. Now in her home study lined with Yale law diplomas and prosecutorial awards, Rebecca reviews a file that could change everything. Her phone buzzes. Rebecca, have you decided about pursuing this formally? Chief Judge Anderson's voice carries concern. Elizabeth, this isn't just about what happened to me. Rebecca sets down security footage stills. It's about a pattern that needs exposing. But filing charges against courthouse security while you're our newest judge. Which is exactly why I must do this. If I don't challenge this behavior now, I'm endorsing it. Rebecca pulls out a thick manual with her notes. I helped draft these courthouse security procedures in my previous role as legal advisor. Carter violated 7 different procedures. Carter claims he didn't know you were. That's the problem. He never asked. He saw a black woman and made assumptions. After the call, Rebecca opens her laptop and reviews security footage obtained through Discovery. The videos reveal disturbing patterns spanning months. Timestamp, April 18th. Dr. Michael Williams, prominent civil rights attorney, aggressively questioned about his courthouse presence. Carter demands to see Williams' bar license, something never requested from white attorneys. Timestamp, May 6th. Elena Rodriguez, Latina court reporter, stopped and interrogated about using the staff entrance she's accessed for 4 years. Timestamp, June 23rd. Professor Stephen Lee, Asian American law professor, forced to provide multiple forms of identification before being allowed to attend a public hearing. Video after video shows the same pattern. Carter treating people of color as threats while waving white visitors through with minimal scrutiny. Rebecca cross-references these incidents with complaint records. What emerges is troubling. 8 informal complaints filed against Carter over 3 years, all dismissed without investigation. Every complainant was a person of color. She reviews Carter's personnel files. Performance reviews praise his vigilance in maintaining proper courthouse atmosphere. Supervisor notes commend his proactive security measures that somehow only target minorities. The language is carefully coded, but the pattern is unmistakable. Her assistant, Angela, arrives with additional evidence. Judge Thompson, here are the phone records you requested. Angela sets down transcripts. Carter's conversations with colleagues show concerning language about courthouse visitors. The records reveal break room discussions, where Carter jokes about keeping certain types in their place, and refers to professional black women as probably here for child support court. Training records show Carter hasn't attended diversity or civil rights education in 6 years. Angela continues, he consistently finds excuses to skip required sessions. And complaint resolution, all security complaints are reviewed by Lieutenant Davis, Carter's supervisor and personal friend for 13 years. No independent oversight exists. Rebecca studies the evidence methodically. Audio recordings capture Carter using racial slurs in the courthouse break room. Witness statements from courthouse employees describe a pattern of discriminatory behavior spanning years. Security footage shows Carter's double standard in action. Courtesy for white visitors, suspicion for everyone else. The most damning evidence comes from Carter's own incident reports. His language reveals his mindset, describing professional black women as aggressive and difficult for simply existing in courthouse spaces, while characterizing similar behavior from white individuals as assertive or confident. She discovers Carter's history includes 3 previous excessive force complaints, both involving black defendants' family members, both dismissed with minimal review. As Rebecca organizes the evidence, the scope becomes clear. This isn't about one officer's bad morning. It's about institutional racism hiding behind security procedures, enabled by supervisors who value keeping the peace over protecting civil rights. She looks at her swearing-in photo, remembering her oath to uphold justice impartially. Tomorrow offers the chance to prove those weren't empty words. The irony strikes her. Carter's actions that morning will expose the very system that protected him for years. His assumption that she was powerless will ultimately reveal just how powerful she really is. But more importantly, this case will ensure that no one else endures what she experienced, being dragged away from their own workplace simply for existing while black. Justice, Rebecca realizes, sometimes comes through the most unexpected reversals of power. Attorney Michelle Chen approaches the evidence table with the confidence of someone holding dynamite. She lifts a tablet displaying security footage that will shatter Officer Carter's carefully constructed story. Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit A, courthouse security footage from the past 7 months, showing Officer Carter's interactions with various courthouse visitors. The courtroom's large screen flickers to life. The first video shows a timestamp from 4 months earlier. Dr. Michael Williams, a distinguished black attorney in an expensive suit, approaches the courthouse entrance carrying a briefcase identical to Rebecca's. Carter's voice crackles through the speakers. Hold up there, sir. Where do you think you're going? Dr. Williams stops politely. I'm here for the Peterson hearing. I'm counsel for the defense. I'm going to need to see some identification. Can't be too careful these days. The footage shows Carter examining Dr. Williams' bar license, driver's license, and business cards for nearly 6 minutes while a white attorney walks past unchallenged. Carter's body language is identical to his interaction with Rebecca. Aggressive posturing, dismissive gestures, treating a respected professional like a potential threat. Can you explain this interaction, Officer Carter? Chen asks. Carter shifts uncomfortably. That was standard security procedure. We verify credentials for everyone. Chen clicks to the next video. Same day, 21 minutes later. A young white woman in casual clothes approaches the same entrance. "Morning, miss," Carter says cheerfully, stepping aside to let her pass. "Actually, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to go," the woman says. "I'm here for jury duty, but this is my first time." "No problem at all. Just head to the 3rd floor. They'll take good care of you up there." No identification requested. No credential verification. No aggressive questioning. "Is this your standard procedure, Officer Carter?" Chen's voice drips with irony. The videos continue, each one more damning than the last. Elena Rodriguez, the Latina court reporter, being interrogated about her staff entrance access, while white employees stream past unquestioned. Professor Stephen Lee, an Asian American law professor, forced to provide 3 forms of identification to attend a public hearing while white observers entered freely. Carter's face grows redder with each video. His attorney objects repeatedly, but the pattern is undeniable. "These are isolated incidents taken out of context," Carter starts. "Isolated?" Chen interrupts. "We have 18 documented instances over 7 months. Shall we watch all of them?" But the real bombshell comes when Chen introduces the phone recordings. Carter's voice fills the courtroom, captured during break room conversations. "You should have seen this uppity black woman today, acting like she owned the place. I had to put her in her place real quick. These people think they can just walk in anywhere like they belong. That's why we're here, to keep standards up. I don't care how fancy they dress. I can spot trouble from a mile away. It's all about keeping the right kind of people in and the wrong kind out." The courtroom erupts. Carter's face goes pale as he hears his own words played back. His attorney frantically scribbles notes, knowing their defense is crumbling in real time. Chen calls her first witness, Dr. Michael Williams himself. "Dr. Williams, you're a partner at Peterson Chen and Associates, correct?" "That's right. 31 years practicing law, 16 of those as a federal prosecutor." "Can you describe your interaction with Officer Carter 4 months ago?" Dr. Williams' voice carries quiet dignity tinged with frustration. "I was treated like a criminal for the simple act of entering a courthouse where I've practiced law for decades. Officer Carter questioned my credentials, demanded multiple forms of identification, and spoke to me with a tone of suspicion I've never experienced from courthouse security." "How did this make you feel?" "Humiliated, angry, but mostly concerned that if this is how he treats a known attorney, what does he do to ordinary citizens who can't defend themselves?" Chen's next witness is Elena Rodriguez, the court reporter. "Ms. Rodriguez, how long have you worked at this courthouse?" 9 years. I've been using the staff entrance for my entire time here." "Describe your interaction with Officer Carter." Elena's voice shakes slightly. "He stopped me like I was trespassing in my own workplace. He demanded to know why I was using the restricted entrance and made me prove I worked there. Meanwhile, 4 white court clerks walked past without any questions." "Did this affect your work?" "I was late to a deposition because of the delay. But worse, I felt like I had to justify my existence in a place where I've worked professionally for nearly a decade." The pattern becomes undeniable as witness after witness testifies to identical treatment. Each person of color stopped, questioned, forced to prove their legitimacy, while white courthouse visitors passed freely. Chen introduces Carter's training records next. "Officer Carter, when was your last diversity training session?" "It's been a while." 6 years, according to these records. You've missed 18 mandatory sensitivity training sessions, claiming schedule conflicts each time. "My shift makes it difficult." Yet you managed to attend firearms training, overtime certification, and 4 professional development seminars during the same period. Carter has no answer. The most devastating evidence comes from Lieutenant Davis, Carter's supervisor, called as a hostile witness. "Lieutenant Davis, how many complaints have been filed against Officer Carter in the past 3 years?" Davis squirms. "I'd have to check the exact number." I'll help you. 8 formal complaints, all from people of color, all dismissed without investigation. Can you explain this pattern? Officer Carter is a good officer. Sometimes people misunderstand standard security procedures. Misunderstand? Or do you mean they correctly understand discriminatory treatment disguised as procedure? Chen presents Davis's own evaluation notes. Carter shows excellent judgment in identifying potential security risks and maintains high standards for courthouse access. When you wrote identifying potential security risks, what did you mean? Davis's pause speaks volumes. People who seem out of place. And how do you determine who seems out of place in a public courthouse? Another telling pause. Professional judgment based on experience. Experience that somehow only flags people of color as suspicious. The courtroom buzzes as the institutional nature of the problem becomes clear. This isn't just one rogue officer. It's a system that has enabled and protected discriminatory behavior for years. Chen's final piece of evidence is a statistical analysis prepared by a civil rights expert. The numbers are staggering. Carter stops and questions people of color at a rate 14 times higher than white visitors. He requests additional identification from minorities 92% of the time versus 4% for white individuals. Physical altercations occur only with people of color. These statistics don't lie, Chen tells the jury. They reveal a clear pattern of racial profiling that has been enabled, protected, and rewarded by a broken system. Carter's attorney attempts damage control during redirect. Officer Carter, do you consider yourself a racist? Absolutely not. I treat everyone fairly. But the evidence has already spoken louder than any denial. The videos, recordings, statistics, and witness testimony create an overwhelming picture of systematic discrimination hiding behind the badge. As the evidence presentation concludes, the courtroom understands they've witnessed something bigger than one morning's incident. They've seen how institutional racism operates in plain sight, protected by those in power, enabled by a culture of willful blindness. Carter sits at the defendant's table, no longer the confident officer who began this trial. He's been exposed as the embodiment of a system that judges people by their skin color while claiming to serve justice equally. But the biggest revelation is still to come. Attorney Chen approaches Rebecca for what everyone assumes will be routine follow-up testimony. The courtroom has settled into a predictable rhythm. No one anticipates that the next 3 minutes will rewrite everything. Ms. Thompson, you mentioned professional obligations that morning. Can you specify these obligations? Rebecca adjusts her posture, commanding greater attention. Her voice carries new authority. I was scheduled to preside over the 9:30 criminal docket. I needed to arrive early to review case files and prepare for the morning's proceedings. The word preside hangs in the air like lightning before thunder. Jury members lean forward, not quite processing what they've heard. When you say preside, can you clarify your role? I am the Honorable Judge Rebecca Thompson, appointed to this courthouse 4 weeks ago. I was arriving to perform my duties as presiding judge of Criminal Court Division D. The courtroom explodes. Gasps echo from the gallery. Jury members' mouths fall open. Carter's face drains of color as the magnitude crashes over him. His attorney drops his pen, staring in disbelief. Judge Martinez pounds his gavel repeatedly. Order, order in this courtroom. Court Clerk Janet Peterson stands shakily. Your Honor, Judge Thompson was indeed scheduled for the 9:30 criminal docket that morning. She was supposed to be in this very courtroom. The irony hits like a physical force. Carter prevented a judge from entering her own courthouse to preside over her own courtroom. The woman he dragged across concrete and called ghetto trash outranks everyone except the chief judge. Carter's world crumbles visibly. His hands shake as he realizes he didn't just assault a citizen, he assaulted a sitting judge. His 16 years of experience failed to recognize the newest judiciary member. His trained eye for troublemakers missed one of the building's most important people. Judge Thompson wasn't visiting the courthouse, Chen continues, savoring each word. She was reporting to work, to her job as a judge in the very system Officer Carter claimed to protect. The revelation recontextualizes every piece of evidence. Those professional obligations, sentencing hearings and criminal trials, her courthouse familiarity, she helped write the procedures. Her calm authority, she's trained to make life-changing decisions under pressure. Carter's attorney whispers frantically, but Carter seems frozen. The confident officer has been replaced by a man confronting career-ending reality. Judge Thompson, how did Officer Carter's actions affect your judicial duties? Rebecca's response carries judicial weight. The criminal docket was delayed 46 minutes while I recovered from the altercation and changed into judicial robes. Defendants in custody waited in holding cells because Officer Carter decided I didn't look like I belonged in my own workplace. Real consequences emerge. Defendants, victims, families affected because Carter's prejudices prevented a judge from working. Did you consider revealing your identity during the incident? I shouldn't have to prove my worth to exist in public spaces. Officer Carter's behavior should be judged on its merits, not on who I turned out to be. Rebecca pauses meaningfully. Every person deserves dignity regardless of position or power. Stunned silence fills the courtroom as Carter's mistake's full scope sinks in. He didn't just assault a citizen, he assaulted a judge. He didn't just make a professional error, he committed a federal crime against the judiciary. He didn't just embarrass himself, he embarrassed the entire courthouse before its newest judge. Carter finally speaks, voice barely audible. I didn't know. No, Rebecca responds with quiet steel. You didn't ask. You saw a black woman and assumed she didn't belong. Your 16 years of experience taught you everything except basic human dignity. The revelation transforms everything. What began as a civil rights case has become unprecedented. A sitting judge seeking justice for her own assault by courthouse security. The power dynamic hasn't just shifted, it's completely inverted. Officer Daniel Carter, who dragged Judge Rebecca Thompson from her own courthouse, now sits seeking mercy from the very system he claimed to protect. The hunter became the hunted, and justice revealed its ultimate irony. The woman he thought powerless holds more power than he ever imagined. The revelation that Rebecca Thompson is a sitting judge has shattered Carter's defense, but the legal proceedings must continue. Judge Martinez calls for a brief recess to allow emotions to settle. But when court reconvenes, the atmosphere has fundamentally changed. Everyone now understands they're witnessing something unprecedented. A federal judge pursuing justice for her own assault by courthouse security. The power dynamics have not just shifted, they've been obliterated and rebuilt entirely. Attorney Chen approaches Carter for cross-examination with renewed purpose. Carter, who began this trial with swagger, now looks like a condemned man awaiting execution. Officer Carter, you've just learned that you physically assaulted a sitting federal judge. How does that make you feel? Carter's voice cracks. I'm devastated, I had no idea. You had no idea because you never asked. You saw a black woman and immediately assumed she was a threat, correct? No, that's not. Officer Carter, in your 16 years of experience, how many white women have you physically dragged from courthouse premises? Carter's attorney objects, but Judge Martinez allows the question. Carter's silence speaks volumes. I'll take that as 0. How many black women? Another crushing silence. The record shows 6, including Judge Thompson. Can you explain this pattern? Carter's face reddens. Each situation was different. Different how? Different skin color triggering different responses. I don't see color. Officer Carter, you just physically assaulted a federal judge because you don't see color. You prevented her from entering her own workplace because you're colorblind. The courtroom watches Carter squirm as his standard defenses crumble under the weight of reality. Chen pulls out Carter's personnel file. Your training records show you've missed 18 mandatory diversity sessions. Why? Schedule conflicts. Yet you attended every firearms training, overtime certification, and professional development seminar during the same period. It seems you only have schedule conflicts with learning about civil rights. Carter has no answer. Officer Carter, do you believe Judge Thompson looked like a criminal that morning? The situation was confusing. Confusing. A professionally dressed woman carrying an expensive briefcase approaching a courthouse entrance confused you. Without proper identification. You never asked for identification. You immediately assumed she didn't belong. Isn't that correct? Carter's voice barely registers. Yes. The admission hangs in the air like a death knell. Carter has just confessed to exactly what everyone suspected. He judged Judge Thompson based solely on her appearance. Chen presses her advantage. Officer Carter, what specifically about Judge Thompson made you think she was a threat? Carter's mouth opens and closes without sound. Any answer he gives will expose his racial bias. Was it her expensive suit, her professional demeanor, her calm voice? What about Judge Thompson's screamed welfare case to you? I made an error in judgment. An error in judgment, or a revelation of your true beliefs about black women. Carter's attorney objects desperately, but the damage is complete. Carter has been exposed not just as a racist, but as someone whose racism is so ingrained, he assaulted a federal judge without a second thought. Chen delivers the final blow. Officer Carter, Judge Thompson spent 16 years as a prosecutor before her judicial appointment. She's put more criminals behind bars than you've ever encountered. Yet you saw her as the criminal. Why? Carter breaks completely. I don't know, she didn't look like. Like what, Officer Carter? Like a judge. What does a judge look like in your mind? The question echoes through the courtroom as Carter realizes he's just admitted that his mental image of authority doesn't include black women. Officer Carter, do you believe you're fit to serve in courthouse security? I've served honorably for 16 years. You just assaulted a federal judge. You've been exposed as someone who systematically targets people of color. You've admitted to making assumptions based on appearance. How is any of that honorable service? Carter's world has collapsed entirely. The confident officer who began this trial is now a broken man whose career, reputation, and future have been destroyed by his own actions and admissions. No further questions, Your Honor. As Chen returns to her seat, the courtroom understands they've witnessed the complete dismantling of not just one man's defense, but an entire system of institutional racism. Carter's cross-examination has revealed the ugly truth about how bias operates in supposedly neutral institutions. The man who thought he was protecting the courthouse from undesirable elements has been revealed as the undesirable element himself. His 16 years of experience couldn't save him from the consequences of assaulting someone he assumed was powerless. Justice, it seems, has a perfect sense of irony. The woman Carter dragged away from her own courthouse now sits in judgment of his actions, and the hunter has definitively become the hunted. Carter's pattern of discrimination has been exposed, his credibility destroyed, his future decided by his own admissions. Sometimes the most powerful testimony comes from the defendant's own mouth. The courtroom feels electric as both attorneys prepare their closing arguments. Everyone present knows they're witnessing legal history, a case that will be studied for decades as an example of how institutional racism operates and how justice can prevail against overwhelming odds. Prosecutor Janet Mills approaches the jury with the gravity of someone carrying the weight of civil rights history. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you've witnessed over these past days isn't just about one officer's bad decision. It's about a system that allowed, encouraged, and protected racial discrimination for years while hiding behind the badge of authority. Mills walks slowly past the jury box, making eye contact with each member. Officer Daniel Carter didn't just assault Rebecca Thompson that March morning. He assaulted the very principles our justice system claims to uphold. He assaulted the idea that all people deserve dignity regardless of their race. He assaulted the Constitution he swore to protect. The prosecutor's voice grows stronger. But here's what makes this case truly extraordinary. Officer Carter assaulted a sitting federal judge, the very embodiment of the justice system he claimed to serve. The irony is so profound it would be comedic if it weren't so tragic. Mills pauses at the evidence table, gesturing toward the mountain of documentation. The evidence shows a clear pattern spanning years. Security footage revealing Carter's double standard, audio recordings capturing his racist language, statistical analysis proving his discriminatory behavior, witness testimony from respected professionals who suffered identical treatment. She turns back to the jury. Carter's defense has crumbled because it was built on lies. He claims he doesn't see color while systematically targeting people of color. He claims to follow procedures while violating every professional standard. He claims Judge Thompson looked suspicious when she was simply existing while black in America. The prosecutor's voice takes on moral authority. This isn't about honest mistakes or split-second decisions. This is about deeply ingrained prejudice that led a trained officer to physically assault a federal judge because she didn't match his racist expectations of what authority looks like. Mills approaches Carter's table, speaking directly to him. "Officer Carter, your 16 years of experience taught you everything except the most basic lesson, that human dignity isn't determined by skin color. Your badge gave you authority, but you used it to oppress rather than protect." She returns to face the jury. Judge Thompson could have revealed her identity immediately. She could have ended this incident with 3 words, "I'm Judge Thompson." But she didn't because she understood something Carter never learned. That justice means everyone deserves dignity, not just those with power. Mills's voice builds to crescendo. Carter violated federal civil rights laws. He committed assault under color of authority. He denied due process to a sitting judge. But most importantly, he betrayed the oath he took to serve and protect all citizens equally. Find him guilty. Send a message that badges don't grant license to discriminate. Show that our justice system protects everyone, especially when everyone includes the judges themselves. Carter's attorney, Roberts, rises for what everyone knows is an impossible defense. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client made mistakes. I won't pretend otherwise. But Officer Carter isn't the monster the prosecution portrays. He's a man who served faithfully for 16 years and made a terrible error in judgment." Roberts' voice lacks conviction as he continues. "Yes, Officer Carter should have asked for identification. Yes, he should have recognized Judge Thompson. But at that moment, working an unfamiliar shift, dealing with a malfunctioning security system, he made split-second decisions based on limited information." The defense feels hollow even as Roberts speaks. "We ask for your mercy, not because Officer Carter's actions were right, but because good people sometimes make catastrophic mistakes. A guilty verdict will destroy not just his career, but his family and future." Roberts sits down, knowing his argument has failed before it began. Judge Martinez takes control for final instructions. "Members of the jury, you must decide whether Officer Carter's actions constitute federal civil rights violations, assault under color of law, and denial of due process. The evidence is clear, the law is settled, the facts are undisputed." The jury deliberates for exactly 48 minutes, barely enough time to elect a foreman and take a formal vote. When they return, the foreman's voice rings with conviction. "On the charge of civil rights violations under color of law, guilty. On the charge of assault and battery, guilty. On the charge of denial of due process, guilty." Carter collapses in his chair as his attorney pats his shoulder helplessly. 16 years of career destroyed by minutes of prejudice. Judge Martinez delivers immediate consequences. "Officer Daniel Carter, you have been found guilty of federal crimes that strike at the heart of our justice system. You used your authority to oppress rather than protect, discriminated based on race while hiding behind your badge, and assaulted a federal judge because your prejudices blinded you to her humanity." The judge's voice carries judicial authority. "You are hereby sentenced to 19 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised probation. You are permanently barred from law enforcement and must complete 250 hours of community service with civil rights organizations. Additionally, this courthouse will implement the Thompson Protocol, mandatory bias training, independent oversight of security complaints, and zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior." Carter is led away in handcuffs. The confident officer replaced by a convicted felon whose racism destroyed everything he claimed to protect. As the courtroom empties, Judge Thompson sits quietly, knowing that justice has been served not through revenge, but through the very system Carter tried to corrupt. The woman he dragged across concrete has ensured that no one else will suffer the same humiliation. Power wielded properly protects the powerless. Sometimes justice requires judges to seek justice for themselves. 7 months after the verdict, the transformation is remarkable. Daniel Carter walks through Valley Plaza Mall in his security guard uniform, checking doors and watching for shoplifters. The man who once wielded federal authority now earns minimum wage protecting discount stores. His law enforcement career ended the moment he dragged a federal judge across Courthouse concrete. Carter's nights are spent in community service at the Martin Luther King Jr. Civil Rights Center, where he faces the people his actions hurt. Former colleagues cross the street to avoid him. His pension is gone, his reputation destroyed, his future limited to whatever work he can find with a federal conviction record. The irony follows him everywhere. The officer who thought he was keeping undesirable elements out of the courthouse has become an undesirable element himself. Meanwhile, Judge Rebecca Thompson has become a national symbol of dignity and resilience. Her story has been featured in Time magazine, The Washington Post, and countless civil rights publications. She didn't seek fame, but her courage in pursuing justice has inspired millions. The Thompson Protocol, implemented nationwide, has revolutionized courthouse security. Independent oversight committees now review all discrimination complaints. Mandatory bias training occurs quarterly, not annually. Security personnel face immediate suspension for discriminatory behavior, and victims have direct access to civil rights attorneys. The numbers speak for themselves. Discrimination complaints in courthouses have increased by 43%, not because discrimination is rising, but because people finally believe their voices will be heard. Investigation rates have jumped from 13% to 91%. Accountability has replaced cover-ups. Judge Thompson's influence extends far beyond security protocols. She's become the youngest person ever appointed to the Federal Civil Rights Commission, where she advocates for systemic justice reform. Her legal scholarship on institutional racism is studied in law schools nationwide. But perhaps most importantly, her story has changed how people think about power and prejudice. The woman Carter saw as powerless revealed herself as one of the most powerful people in the building. His assumptions about who belongs in positions of authority cost him everything. Today, Judge Thompson presides over her courtroom with renewed purpose. Every decision she makes honors those who suffer in silence, who endure discrimination without recourse, who are judged by their appearance rather than their character. The leather briefcase she carried that morning now sits in the Smithsonian Civil Rights Museum, a symbol of how dignity can triumph over prejudice. Visitors read the placard. This briefcase belonged to Judge Rebecca Thompson when she was assaulted by courthouse security for looking suspicious. It reminds us that justice sometimes requires judges to seek justice for themselves. Carter's story serves as a cautionary tale in law enforcement academies nationwide. Recruits study his case to understand how quickly prejudice can destroy careers and lives. The lesson is clear. Badges grant authority, but character determines how that authority is used. Stories like Judge Thompson's happen more often than we'd like to admit, but most never make headlines. Most victims don't have the power to fight back. Most injustices go unrecorded, unpunished, unchanged. That's why sharing these stories matters. That's why your voice matters. Where are you from? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to see that dignity always wins in the end. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut and ring that notification bell, because we're committed to bringing you more stories of courage overcoming prejudice, of justice defeating discrimination, and of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Tell us in the comments, have you ever witnessed discrimination disguised as following protocol? Your experience could inspire our next story. Because when we shine light on injustice, we make it harder for darkness to hide. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one others underestimate most. The story you heard today wasn't cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened. At Black Voices Uncut, we believe that's the only way truth can live. If you felt something, hit like, comment your reaction, and subscribe. Every week we bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.